It's a good one. Oh, look who we have. How are you? It's been a long time. Must be something big happening, huh? You all set? Well, thank you very much. It's a great day for me because I have a lot of confidence in this gentleman. And we're thrilled to swear in our new Secretary of Homeland Security, great American patriot, to put it mildly, Mark Wayne Mullen. And I want to just say, Mark Wayne, congratulations. Great. You deserve it. You're a great man. Let me also thank Secretary Mullen's beautiful family, including his wife, Christy. Thank you. His sons, Jim and Jace and Andrew, and daughters, Lara, Ivy, Lynette, and other members of the Mullen family. It's a beautiful family. And we know this guy, he's a big top wrestling guy. I won't wrestle him for anything. An all-American wrestler, huh? Good genetics in that family. Proud of you. Thanks as well to Attorney General Pam Bondi, Chairman Jason Smith, Congressman Josh Gottheimer, former Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy, and many of the friends that are gathered with us. It's a great group of people. For 13 years, Mark Wayne has represented the incredible state of Oklahoma, a state that I won 77 out of 77 counties 3 times in a row, so they like me there. Second was Ronald Reagan at 56. Did you know that? 56, it's not bad. But 77, it's 77 out of 77, I think, right? That's not bad. But he was there in Congress as a member of the House and then as an outstanding United States Senator. And he really has been outstanding. He's been a close and vital partner in helping us secure the border, stop migrant crime, end the scourge of illegal drugs, and make America safe again and make America great again. And he's a tremendous player. He worked with Tom Homan, worked with all of our people on the right, and many more. And everything he's done has been good. I say everything he touched, he's turned to gold. Now, but even in business, he was successful in all fairness, and he was successful. He said, I want to go into politics. I hope you're happy. But as the only Native American, I didn't know that, huh? Let me look at you. Well, I think that's all right. He's got great quality, I can tell you. He's the only Native American in the Senate. How many have been there before you? Do you know? Native American?
I think 3.
3. Well, you're a fantastic representative. Mark Wayne has also been a fantastic advocate for cherished tribal communities. He's now the first member of the Cherokee Nation ever to serve as a member of the cabinet. I didn't know all these things. I would have picked him faster if I had known. I would have made a quicker decision. Prior to his career in public service, Mark Wayne had a very successful career in business, leaving school at age 20 after his father got sick, taking over his family business and turning it into a multi-million-dollar success story. He's a very successful guy. Mark Wayne has also a career as an MMA fighter. That's why I looked at his ears and I said, I'm not going to fight with him. You can tell a lot about a person by their ears, right? During which he went totally undefeated. He was undefeated during his career, and he's been inducted into the Oklahoma Wrestling Hall of Fame. And the family is made of fantastic wrestlers, especially that guy right there. That's my favorite guy, huh? And suffered bad injury and come back stronger than ever, I think. So good to have you, man, right? I've no doubt that as he takes the helm of DHS, Mark Wayne will fight for Homeland Security, the United States, and securing the country and making it really strong and the way it should be. Our country's come a long way in the last year. We set it up so beautifully, and then we had 4 years of horror. We had 4 years of disgusting horror, open borders, and things that nobody would even think of.
All right, we're going to keep monitoring what's going on in the Oval Office, but right now the LaGuardia Airport for the NTSB News Conference.
John DeLue, he is a new board member with the National Transportation Safety Board, and he's here on his training launch. To my right is Doug Brazy. Doug is our investigator in charge, or IIC as we refer to the investigator in charge. Again, he's a senior aviation accident investigator that has been with the board for 34 years. So today, as I mentioned yesterday, today's our full first day on scene, and we have a lot to cover. In fact, we started the morning with a 2-hour meeting just to organize our investigative groups and walk through what we needed to accomplish today. Fortunately, the entire NTSB team has arrived. Like I said, yesterday we had significant delays with investigators getting here due to backups of TSA lines, and in fact I understand that this press conference had to move because the lines were actually wrapping around the building. But I do have a lot of investigative information to share today. First, as I mentioned yesterday, we were able to take possession of the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder. That was at 9:57 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Our local investigator, had immediately began a trip down to our headquarters in Washington, D.C. to take the CVR and FDR to our labs for downloading and for analysis. We do have some preliminary information to share from the final 3 minutes from the cockpit voice recorder. And again, I just want to say it's preliminary and is subject to change, and for that I'm going to turn that piece over to Doug Brazy.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The airplane was equipped with an Akron Aviation Model Survivor 25 cockpit voice recorder and an Akron Aviation Model FA2100 flight data recorder. The cockpit voice recorder contained more than 25 hours of good quality audio across 4 separate channels. The flight data recorder contained approximately 80 hours of data and recorded more than 400 parameters. The NTSB will convene a cockpit voice recorder group scheduled for tomorrow at the NTSB headquarters in Washington, D.C. to review the accident flight recording and produce a written transcript. The following is a summary of events captured on the cockpit voice recorder during the final 3 minutes of the recording. All times are referenced to the end of the CVR recording. 3 minutes and 7 seconds prior to the end of the recording, the approach controller instructed the airplane to contact LaGuardia Tower. At 2 minutes and 45 seconds, the flight crew lowered the landing gear. At 2 minutes and 22 seconds, the flight crew checked in with the LaGuardia Tower. At 2 minutes and 17 seconds, the LaGuardia Tower cleared the airplane to land on runway 4 and advised that they were number 2 for landing. At time 1 minute and 52 seconds, the flight crew set the flaps to 30 degrees. At 1 minute and 33 seconds, the flight crew set the flaps to 45 degrees. At 1 minute and 26 seconds, an electronic 1000 call-out occurred from the enhanced ground proximity warning system, indicating that the airplane was 1,000 feet above the ground. At 1 minute and 12 seconds, the flight crew confirmed that the landing checklist was complete. At 1 minute and 3 seconds, an airport vehicle made a radio transmission to the tower, but that transmission was stepped on by another radio transmission, and the source of who made that transmission has yet to be identified. At 54 seconds, the flight crew acknowledged that the airplane was 500 feet above the ground and on a stable approach. At 40 seconds, the LaGuardia Tower asked which vehicle needed to cross a runway. At 28 seconds, Truck 1 made a radio transmission to the tower. At 26 seconds, the tower acknowledged that radio transmission. At 25 seconds, Truck 1 requested to cross runway 4 at taxiway Delta. At 20 seconds, the tower cleared Truck 1 and company to cross runway 4 at taxiway Delta. At 19 seconds, an electronic 100 enhanced ground proximity warning system callout occurred. At 17 seconds, Truck 1 read back the runway crossing clearance. At 14 seconds, an electronic 50 callout. At 12 seconds, an electronic 30 callout. And at that same time, the tower instructed a Frontier Airlines flight to hold position. At 11 seconds, an electronic 20 callout occurred. And at 10 seconds, an electronic 10 callout occurred. At 9 seconds, the tower instructed Truck 1 to stop. At 8 seconds, there was a sound consistent with the airplane's landing gear touching down on the runway. At 6 seconds, there was a pilot transfer of controls from one pilot to the other. And at 4 seconds, the tower again instructed Truck 1 to stop. At 0 seconds, the recording ended. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Mr. Brazy had mentioned that 6 seconds before the end of the recording, the pilot transferred controls. We do know that the first officer was flying and transferred control to the captain. With respect to aircraft rescue and firefighting operations, we will be developing a timeline of events. We do know that they were responding to a United Airlines flight 2384 at the gate, which had 2 aborted takeoffs, and the ARF, or the Aircraft Rescue and Firefighters, had received information that there were fumes or a smoke or some sort of smell in the cabin, so they were en route to address that. Truck 1, which Mr. Brazy had mentioned, had collided with the aircraft. We do know that there were other vehicles behind Truck 1 which did not begin to cross the runway. We have seen varying information about how many vehicles, so we need to verify that information, and we'll provide it at a later time. Truck 1, however, did not have a transponder. With respect to air traffic control, we have seen different information about how many certified professional controllers were in the facility. And we need to verify that starting with interviews this afternoon. We'll begin to interview the local controller at 4 o'clock this afternoon. We do have logs, but there's also conflicting information, including dates and times on the logs. So now we have to go through that and rectify some of those inconsistencies. We do, however, know that there were 2 people in the cab, 2 people in the tower cab at the time of collision: the local controller and the controller in charge. Again, local controller and controller in charge. For those who may be watching and aren't familiar with aviation, the local controller manages active runways and the immediate airspace surrounding the airport. That local controller had signed on at 10:45, and the shift would have ended at 6:45 a.m. That doesn't mean that he was in position at 10:45, but that he had just signed in at 10:45 p.m. The controller in charge is responsible for safety of operations, all safety of operations. He had clocked in or signed in at 10:30 p.m. And that shift would have ended at 6:30 a.m. Again, that was signing in at 10:30 p.m. The controller in charge was also doing the duties of the clearance delivery position. The clearance delivery controller provides pilots with their departure clearance. It is not clear who was conducting the duties of the ground controller. We have conflicting information. We have some information saying it was the controller in charge. We have some information saying it was the local controller. The ground controller duties are that they manage all aircraft and vehicle movements on the taxiways, and that generally excludes active runways.
All right, we are going to
So
briefly
these two-
dip out of this and back to the White House, where President Trump is now taking questions at the swearing in of the new DHS secretary.
Voter ID with a picture. You want citizenship, proof of citizenship. Ideally, you want to end mail-in ballots because there's tremendous corruption. Then we added a couple of things, Mark Wayne, like I don't think being a great athlete and having a family of great athletes, they have produced great athletes in this family, all-American wrestlers. They especially like wrestling, by the way. And what about baseball? Do you play baseball? Anything? They like wrestling. But I don't think that you would say that his family, and I don't know this for a fact, and I shouldn't say it because I could get myself, does anybody in your family want men to play in women's sports? I don't think so, Jim, right? I don't think so. I don't think. How would they do? Would they do good wrestling? They would be in trouble? He said, yes, they'd be in big trouble. It's so crazy. So that would be one. And then we have a few others that we call them the best of Trump. But if you look at transgender mutilization of children, we don't want that. It's the mutilization of children. We don't want that. So generally speaking, I think I can answer that Mark Wayne would be very much in favor of what I'm in favor of. Would you say that's right, Mark? I can't think of too many things. He might be worse. He might be worse than me. That's my look at his wife and say that's right. But so yeah, he's going to be great. Yeah.
Do you believe the secretary will run DHS any differently than Kristi Noem did? What do you hope to see as his priorities?
Well, we had a good run. Look, we created the strongest border with the help of that man right there. Tom is so incredible, and he's going to be a big influence here too. There's nobody more professional, nobody better. There's nobody better as a human being. You know, he looks tough, but he's got a good heart, but not too good. Don't make it too good. But you know, we had Tom. We have the safest border we've ever had. We have a lot of assets, but a lot of things we can do, and we're going to do. We have to get criminals out of our country that were allowed in by Biden. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, do you support what appears to be emerging agreement coming out of the Senate to reopen DHS?
Well, I'm going to look at it, and we're going to take a good hard look at it. I want to support Republicans, and you know, sometimes it's awfully hard to get votes when you have Democrats that don't want to have voter ID. They don't want to have proof of citizenship. They don't want to do anything about men playing in women's sports. That's one of the items we put on, you know. And I did that just because it's so popular. You know, they say that's at least an 80-20 issue. No, it's about a 99-1. I don't think it's, what do you think, Pete? Do you think it's 80-20? Who's closer, 80-20 or 99-1?
Almost 100.
Yeah, I think 100 is really the, so, you know, so I support that, and I support common sense.
Would you be comfortable with a deal that involves separating ICE funding from the DHS funding package in order to reopen?
Well, they're working on all of that. You know, that's a detail that they'll explain later. Please.
Integrity and DHS measures. Mr. President, since CISA falls under DHS, and given that many credible voices have raised concerns over its premature and possibly likely faulty 2020 election assessment, will you and Secretary Mullen implement reforms at CISA and at DHS to ensure full confidence in future elections, like in the upcoming?
We'll talk about it, you know, pros and cons. Look, they used it to try and put me in prison, right? So I can't be thrilled with it. They use that very strongly, very illegally. The Democrats are thugs, and I don't want to say that. It'd be nice to everyone get along, but it's a different country than it was years ago. It was very dangerous the way they used it. And they weaponized government. They used that to weaponize government. So I'm not thrilled, but I'll also go along with two groups of people, the military, and I think the military likes it, right? And I'll go along with the senators. I'm fine. But I was a big victim of it. Yeah, please.
Are you going to send Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff to do direct negotiations with the Iranians?
Yeah, well, we're in negotiations, as it turned out, and now you've seen what I said yesterday was exactly correct. We're in negotiations right now. They're doing it along with Marco, JD. We have a number of people doing it, and the other side, I can tell you, they'd like to make a deal. And who wouldn't if you were there? Look, their Navy's gone, their Air Force is gone, their communications are gone. That's the biggest problem. It's very hard to communicate them between themselves. All of the anti-aircraft is gone. Most of their missiles are gone. We either shot them or they shot them and don't have them anymore. They're down to a trickle. They're pretty much everything they have is gone. I don't know. Can you name one thing that's not gone, or can you name one thing that's doing well? You know, if you read the papers, you think we're tied. You think we're in a tough battle. We are roaming free over Tehran, the city Tehran, as opposed to Iran. We're roaming free. We can do whatever we want. And as you know, today we're going to have the privilege of shooting down a very big electric generation plant, one of the biggest in the world. And one shot to the right location ends the plant, it collapses. And we held off based on the fact that we're negotiating. You know,
What do you think was the turning point to make you want to pursue a ceasefire? A few days ago, you said you wanted to continue bombing Iran. Now you want to pursue peace talks. Was there something that happened?
The fact that they're talking to us and they're talking sense. And remember, it all starts with they cannot have a nuclear weapon. Just, you know, I said yesterday, they said, what are the top 10? I said, well, number 1, 2, and 3 is they can't have a nuclear weapon. And they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. And we're talking about that. And I don't want to say in advance, but they've agreed they will never have a nuclear weapon. They've agreed to that.
How do you ensure they won't have a nuclear
Your
weapon?
former Border Patrol chief, Greg Bobino, said his only regret is that he didn't catch more illegal aliens. What's your reaction to that?
Who said that?
That's your former Border Patrol chief. He just retired.
Well, I mean, we captured a lot. You know, they were allowed into the country by Sleepy Joe and that group of incompetent people that were, he the worst president ever, the group of incompetent people. To me, that's the biggest scar. You know, inflation, they caused the highest inflation we've ever had. We've already gotten rid of it. The biggest scar is what they did, the people that they allowed from prisons all over the world. They came from the Congo, from all over South America. Rough people, really tough people. So, no, I understand what he means. He's, you know, he would have liked to have captured more. I'm not capturing so much as removing. You know, we're removing thousands of people, and many are self-deporting because we're going after them so powerfully that they're self-deporting. So I'm going back. I think that's one of the big unkept secrets. It's with thousands and thousands of people, and they're self-deporting. They're going back to where they came from. But what we want really is the criminals. We're really focused on those criminals, getting them out. Yeah.
What's your message right now to Democrats and also to Americans that are stuck in airports? It's really devastating watching it online because Democrats won't fund DHS.
What's devastating?
So Americans are now stuck in airports as we speak because Democrats won't.
Well, they just don't. They won't. Look, this is a deal that was done in the Great Big Beautiful Deal, which gave you the biggest tax cuts ever, including no tax on tips and no tax on Social Security for the seniors. Think of it, no tax on overtime, tax deductions when you buy a car, you take money, you pay interest on the money, you deduct it. We've never had that for people buying cars, if it's an American car, only if it's an American car. But they are just they stick together, the Democrats. I tell you, I give them great credit for that. We have some that they're not good stickers. We have guys like Tom Massey in Congress is terrible. He's just terrible person. I call him Rand Paul Jr. But they don't vote. Rand Paul, I mean, rarely votes for stuff. He likes me, says I'm a great president. He said the other day, I'm a great president, one of the greatest presidents. But I said, do me a favor, vote for us and don't call me a great. I'd rather have the vote than the statement. But we have people that don't stick together, and those people hopefully will someday be gone. And the thing I most respect about the Democrats, even on horrible policy, they stick together. What they do have, though, is horrible policy. Transgender for everyone, open borders, men and women's sports. They have the worst policy that you can imagine. And so whether they stick together or not, I mean, they have just this terrible policy. We have great policy. Republicans have great policy. We have common sense policy, but it's great policy. That's our biggest advantage, is our policy is correct. Yeah, please.
President, are you encouraging our allies in the Gulf to be more involved in the Iran operation?
Say it.
Are you encouraging our allies in the Gulf to be more involved in the Iran operation?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, but more NATO. I think our Gulf allies have been pretty good, to be honest with you. UAE's been hit so hard. He got hit by 1,400 rockets, shot them all out of the air with our great Patriot missiles. Think of it, they shot 100 missiles at one of our aircraft carriers, the Abraham Lincoln, one of the biggest ships in the world, actually. And out of 101 missiles shot, every single one of them was knocked down in the sea. Think of that. Think of what that means. 101 missiles, highly sophisticated, very fast missiles shot. Out of 101, all 101 were shot down, and now, for the most part, lie at the bottom of the sea. And pretty amazing, right?
Very amazing.
Our military is amazing, Pete. You know the attack I'm talking about recently? 101 shot. I said, wow. I saw that. You can see we have sort of pretty good equipment that we see. It's called the red line. Those red lines were thick, right? And I said, that's a lot. And then we saw them one by one just get shot. And these guys that do the shooting are the coolest cucumbers ever. You know, most people, you don't have a lot of time. When a missile's going at 2,500 miles an hour, I don't care how far away it is, you don't have a lot of time. But I watch them sit down and think. Great students, MITs, a lot of MITs, a lot of guys like this. They're not as much into the muscle as they are this one right here. And amazing to watch them perform under great pressure, because they have a matter of seconds to do it. If they don't do it properly, it's a big problem, you know, because these were very powerful missiles coming. And so a lot of people choke. They don't choke. These guys don't choke. They're the best in the world. We have the best in the world, yeah.
Mr. President, what would be your message today to the TSA agents who have been staying home in recent days amid this impact?
Well, some of them are needing money, you know, because the Democrats cut off their money. I blame the Democrats more than anything else. But some of them, you know, they didn't get paid because they're not funded by the Democrats. This is a Democrat problem. In fact, I actually said to the Senate, why would you say this is a Democrat problem? I think the polls are showing it's a Democrat problem. And they'll do anything actually to hurt our country so they can try and win the midterms. And if we ever went back to our old policies, we wouldn't have a country left.
They did a deal, Republicans and Democrats in the Senate, to fund all but enforcement operations of ICE, to get those TSA agents repaid and to open up the rest of the department. Would you sign that?
Well, I don't want to comment until I see the deal, but as you know, they're negotiating a deal. I guess they're getting fairly close, but I think any deal they make, I'm pretty much not happy with it. These guys came in, they wouldn't pay people. You know, they had a deal to pay. They had to break their deal. The Democrats broke the deal that we had. It was all done. Everything was fine, and then they just said, well, we're not going to pay anymore. And they hurt our country. And at a very difficult time, because, you know, we are at, as they would say, a war. They call it a war. I call it a military operation. A very successful one, like nobody's ever seen before. Hey, Venezuela was equally as successful. That was a great thing. No, the Democrats had a deal. It was a done deal, and then they said, well, we're not going to pay. And so a lot of people suffered over that, and it put our country in danger. You have another question? You haven't been here in a while.
Well, Ron, can you give us any more sense of who exactly in Iran it is, either Wickoff or Kushner or others speaking with?
Yeah, we had, I hate to say this in front of these young people, they're not children. I spoke to most of them, they sound like adults to me, even though they are sort of children. Right? They'll always be your children. But I hate to say it, but we killed all their leadership. And then they met to choose new leaders, and we killed all of them. And now we have a new group, and we can easily do that, but let's see how they turn out. We have really regime change. You know, this is a change in the regime because the leaders are all very different than the ones that we started off with that created all those problems. So this was, I think we can say, Jason, this is regime change, right?
What makes you trust them?
I don't trust anybody. I don't trust you. I mean, that's only because I know you. But if I didn't know you, I'd probably have more trust. But I don't trust anyone.
Why bother?
Why do you say that? Why do you say what makes you trust? Do you think I trust them? I don't trust them.
Then why bother talking to them?
Because they're going to make a deal. They're going to make a deal. They did something yesterday that was amazing, actually. They gave us a present, and the present arrived today. And it was a very big present worth a tremendous amount of money. And I'm not going to tell you what that present is, but it was a very significant prize. And they gave it to us, and they said they were going to give it, so that meant one thing to me: we'd deal with the right people.
Nuclear related?
No, it wasn't nuclear related. It was oil and gas related, and it was a very nice thing they did. But what it showed me is that we're dealing with the right people. Because, you don't know, because the leadership was killed, all gone. Khomeini, all gone, as the expression goes, the past supreme leader. And then the new supreme leader was racked up, at a minimum racked up pretty good, and everyone else was gone. And then many of the people in the third tier are gone, but we're dealing with a group of people that I think turn out, and the present, the gift they made to us was very significant, and they said they were going to do it, and it happened, and they're the only ones that could have done it. Jennifer?
Was it related to the Strait of Hormuz and the flow of...
Yeah, it was related to the flow and to the strait, yeah, it was.
Are you negotiating on who's going to control the strait from now on?
No, we'll have control of anything we want. Look, if we can end this without more lives being down, without knocking out $10 billion electric plants that are brand new and the apple of their eye, I'd like to be able to do that, But they can't have certain things. I mean, you know the things. I don't have to go over the list, but again, it starts with no nuclear weapons, and they've agreed to that. There won't be any nuclear weapons. They're not going to have, and they're not going to have enrichment, any of those things. But look, I hate to say that we're in a very good bargaining position, and I hate to say that they're defenseless, because until that last missile is fired, they have little power. But we are in about the best bargaining position. We're way ahead of schedule. And again, they have no Navy, and they have no Air Force, and they have no missile protection, and most of their missiles are gone. Most of their launches we've killed. We've killed about 82% of their launches. So even if they had a missile, they can't launch it. We've been very fast. We have the greatest military in the world. Nobody even comes close. We have the best military equipment in the world. Go ahead.
On Saudi Arabia, there's been some reporting that you've been talking to the Crown Prince. Have you been focused on normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel at this point?
No, we have a great relationship with Saudi Arabia. What do you hear with Saudi Arabia?
Just hearing that you've been talking and that he has been encouraging you to do certain things related to Iran. Can you share a little bit?
He's a warrior. He does. Yeah, he's a warrior. He's fighting with us, by the way. Saudi Arabia has been excellent, and UAE, excellent. And I will tell you, Qatar, incredible. Qatar took a hit, a pretty bad hit. Qatar is very close, they're essentially, you can walk right over the border. Qatar took a hit. They've been great. They've been very strong. Kuwait, they had a little mishap. They shot down 3 planes with our missiles. They happen to be our planes, but the pilots made it. Can you imagine the pilots making it? The pilots are always coming. And they said, those are patriots. We're not going to escape patriots. And they got out of there pretty quick, Pete, right? Pretty amazing that they got out. The 3 pilots lived. They're fine. In fact, they're flying today.
The Kuwaitis that accidentally fired the missile?
Yeah, the Kuwaitis made a mistake. They fired. They thought they were firing at the enemy. It was, as the expression goes, friendly fire. But the pilots are great. They're flying today. Pretty amazing, right? When you think of it. Yeah.
President Trump, on a human level, how hopeful are you that this peace deal will work out? Like as a human,
On what?
On a human level, not as the President of the United States, how hopeful are you that this peace deal will work out with Iran?
You're talking about to end it? Well, I think we're going to end it. I can't tell you for sure. I don't like to say this. We've won this. This war has been won. The only one that likes to keep it going is the fake news. I mean, the New York Times, you read the New York Times, it's like we're not winning a war where they have no Navy and they have no Air Force and they have no nothing. And we literally have planes flying over Tehran and other parts of their country. They can't do a thing about it. For instance, if I want to take down that power plant, that very big, powerful power plant, they can't do a thing about it. It's like, take me. That's all they can do. And yet, if you read the New York Times, or if you watch ABC fake news or NBC fake news, you'd say, it's a close battle. It's not a close battle. They're totally defeated. You know, we killed the Navy in, would you say 3 days, Pete? Gone. In fact, I was a little upset with Pete. I said, why didn't you save the ships? We could have used them, right? He said, it's more fun shooting them down. But the Navy was wiped out in a very rapid order. Pretty impressive for you guys, you champion wrestlers, right? When you hear this stuff. But you don't, if you read the news, you don't hear this. You know, you read like, oh, they're doing wonderfully. They're doing terribly. They're wiped out militarily. They are dead. Yeah.
Is there a new sense of a timeline? Do you want to get something done before the midterms?
Well, we'd like to see President Putin and President Zelensky sit down and make a deal. I think they're getting close, but I've been saying that for a while. I've settled 8 wars. All of them should have been more difficult than this one. This should have been the easiest one. But these are two people that truly hate each other. You'll find out that hatred is not good for making deals. These are people that they don't like each other very much. Yeah.
I know you said there's a bunch of people from the administration who are negotiating with Iran. There's been reports that the vice president is leading those negotiations. Is that true?
Well, he's involved in them. JD is involved, and Marco's involved, and Jared Kushner's involved, very smart guy, and Steve Witkoff, smart guy, is involved. And I'm involved. I'm involved. Why? I'm going to be so big. Oh, I don't want to talk about it. I'm the President of the United States, Tom. And I'm not going to talk about it. It's beneath me to talk about saving millions of lives, because that's what you're talking about. You're talking about saving millions of lives. If Iran had a nuclear weapon, they would have used it. And if I didn't end the horrible Barack Hussein Obama Iran nuclear deal in my first administration, they would have had a nuclear weapon 3 or 4 years ago. They would have used it. I would have never gotten the chance probably to be president. Who knows it would have been so devastating. And if we didn't send those beautiful B-2 bombers, they took them off my desk. They were right there. I don't know why, but if we didn't have those beautiful, the B-2 hit, which was so we obliterated, despite CNN. CNN said, well, maybe the word obliteration. Said, no, we obliterated it. Just obliterated their nuclear potential. You would have had them having 2 weeks after that attack, had we not made the attack, they would have had a nuclear weapon. They would have absolutely used it. And they would have used it on the entire Middle East, including Israel. And you know why you see that? Because unexpectedly, when this war broke out, unexpectedly, they started sending missiles to UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, and elsewhere. And nobody thought they were going to. Were you equally surprised by that, Pete?
Way more than we wanted.
Pete, do you want to give about a 3-minute statement on how we're doing in this, as I call it, military operation? People don't like me using the word war, so I won't. But the Democrats go to war. How about a little statement? I think he's done a very good job. Do we agree he's done a good job, Parkway? Can we take some of your time?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. You're spot on. Never in history has a modern military, Iran had a modern military, a modern navy, a modern air force, modern air defenses, leadership, massive bunker. Never has a modern military been so rapidly and historically obliterated, defeated, from day one with overwhelming firepower. The air campaign that we've conducted, that Israel's conducted alongside us, was one for the history books, truly. And it's because we have a president of the United States that when he sends his warfighters out to fight, he unties their hands to actually go out and close with and destroy the enemy as viciously as possible from moment one. And that's why we see ourselves as part of this negotiation as well. We negotiate with bombs. You have a choice as we loiter over the top of Tehran, as the president talked about your future. The president has made it clear that you will not have a nuclear weapon. The War Department agrees. Our job is to ensure that. And so we're keeping our hand on that throttle. as long as hard as is necessary to ensure the interests of the United States of America are achieved on that battlefield. This is not Iraq and Afghanistan. This is not a president who's interested in vague end states. He's been very clear with us about what we need to accomplish, creating the conditions for them never to have a nuclear capability, and that's exactly what we're doing in historic fashion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. President,
You know, the only two people that were quite disappointed, I don't want to say this, but I have to. I said, Pete and General Raisin Kane, I think this thing's going to be settled very soon. Here they go. Oh, that's too bad. Pete didn't want it to be settled. It's these guys are doing a great job. That's a good attitude, though, Tom, right? They were not interested in settlement. They were interested in just winning this thing. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, can you, taking things locally, hopefully not doing international affairs for a second, do you support the construction of the 2nd Avenue subway in New York City and will your administration
Far out, you know, the 2nd Avenue subway is being under construction for, you're a young guy, is longer than you are old, okay? That's been under construction. I haven't heard about the 2nd Avenue subway in 20 years. What the hell kind of a question is that? I guess they got to get it finished. They spent trillions of dollars practically. No, they spent more money on that than on anything, I think, in the history of our city, in New York City, and it's been under construction for a long time. It's very sad, actually. The only thing made me worse was Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, his train, I call it his train wreck, because it's a wreck. That's been years. It's literally 30 times over budget. Nobody's ever said anything like that. And it doesn't go to San Francisco and Los Angeles like it was supposed to. They decided to cut it way short because there was no way they could finish it. But it's one of the worst. I've never seen anything like it. Other than the worst, the Federal Reserve building for almost $4 billion, a little building that's going to cost a renovation for $4 billion, headed by our highly incompetent head of the Federal Reserve.
Mr. President,
yeah, please.
Mr. President, would you be open, are you hoping to see the Senate pursue Reconciliation 2.0 to fund ICE and pass the State of America?
Well, we'll see about reconciliation. We're certainly talking about reconciliation, I think, Mark Wayne, right? Do you want to talk about that for a second? Now that he's working, we can get him to do this.
Thank you. Lindsey Graham, the chairman where the reconciliation will funnel through, he is committed to making sure we get reconciliation through. If that is in some form with funding ICE, possibly backfilling from the One Big Beautiful Bill, but also more importantly, the Save American Act. There's a framework that we can do through reconciliation, paying for it, put some of the policies that cost money in, because there's nothing more important than the Save American Act. I mean, that's what the American people want. There's 80% of the population say they want only Americans voting, citizens that are registered to vote, citizens that have done it the right way. And I believe that everybody wants an election integrity. So fortunately, Lindsey Graham has said through reconciliation, he's willing to put the framework out for that.
And I think that was said so beautifully, so concisely, so well, your father, that we should let him have the last word, and that was it. That was the last word. Did he do a good job? Are you impressed with your father?
Never been more impressive than anybody in my life.
How about me? Don't answer. Don't answer. Don't answer. No, you like your father better, okay? Come here. Look at this guy. Come here. This guy, don't wrestle him. We'll see over here. All right. I want to thank the family, because without the family, he's not here. You know, he's a different person. And that goes especially for Mom, who looks like she's about 22 years old. I don't know. I see these kids, but she looks very young. But it's a great couple. Congratulations to you both. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
All right, you've been watching the swearing-in ceremony of the new DHS secretary, with some news being dropped by the president on these negotiations with Iran. Again, not offering specific details with whom he is speaking and negotiating. John, but he did say that he received a significant gift. At one point, I think he called it a prize from Iran. That he labeled significant in all of this, meaningful. So we don't know exactly what that is, but we didn't know that prior to this.
He did say that it was related to the Strait of Hormuz, though, so more details on that to come. Another couple of bits of news. He said that 101 missiles in total were fired at the USS Abraham Lincoln, and each and every one of them was shot down. He also added a little more detail on the shoot down of those F-15s over Kuwait, saying that they were taken down by Patriot missiles. It had gone back and forth between Kuwaiti Air Defense and then an F-18 might have brought them down. The president says that they were taken down by Patriot missiles. Let's bring in Michael Oren, former Israeli ambassador to the United States. He joins us now from Tel Aviv. Mr. Ambassador, always good to have you on. What do you make of the news from the president that the United States and Iran are in talks potentially to bring an end to this conflict?
Well, if the conflict ends and if the goals of the war are achieved, John, then everybody in Israel will be very, very happy. I just got out of the bomb shelter about 5 minutes ago. We had another two very large missiles striking not far from where I'm talking to you. And these are cluster bombs that break up into many, many bomblets and kill people. So certainly the people of Israel have been in these bomb shelters now for a month. Our children, our grandchildren will be very, very happy if this war ends, but it has to end in a way that we don't have to fight it again in another 10 or even 5 years. And according to the Israeli reports tonight, there are 5 goals here, John. One is to make sure Iran doesn't get a nuclear weapon, as the president said during his press conference, to make sure that Iran can't build these long-range, huge ballistic missiles again, that Iran will stop supporting terror throughout the world, and that it will ship out the nearly 1,000 pounds of highly enriched uranium, which it has, which can make 11 atomic bombs out of that. Very, very dangerous. So the hope here in Israel that if these talks are serious and Iran is serious about making these concessions, that everyone here will be very happy.
So as far as, this question over whether or not Iran can be trusted and whoever this is that the White House is negotiating with, what do you say about that? President Trump insisting just a few moments ago that they will make a deal while also saying that Iran cannot be trusted. So how do you wrap your mind around that?
Very simple, actually. You trust them, but with supervision. They have to be every concession that Iran makes. Say they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. Say they're not going to make these huge ballistic missiles. And you see the size of these things on your screen there. They're huge. They're the size of a bus. You have to have inspectors go in there. And they have to be deep inspections without restrictions. And under the previous JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal of President Obama, there were tremendous restrictions on those inspections, and eventually the Iranians simply cut them off. They can't do that. So, yeah, they can make concessions, but you have to make sure those concessions can be observed and certified by international inspectors.
And those ballistic missiles that they fired at Diego Garcia over the weekend would seem to give a lie to what Iran has claimed, that it was only focusing on short-range ballistic missiles with a range of 2,000 kilometers or less. What do you make of what the president said, Mr. Ambassador, about Iran showing that the United States is talking to the right people by giving them a very significant gift, which the president then put a tiny little bit of meat in the bones by saying it was related to the Strait of Hormuz? Any idea what that could be in relation to?
It could be letting tankers through. There are dozens of tankers that have been waiting to move through the Straits of Hormuz, and that is causing a spike in oil prices worldwide. Certainly Israel would like to see those prices go down as well. And if that's the gift, then it should be accepted. And if it's an expression of goodwill, which is really what this is about, that will be tested in the coming days. The president has given the Iranians till Friday to come up to a solution of Hormuz. In which case, expressions of goodwill, let's see what happens around the negotiating table.
Now, Michael, a lot of what we're doing here at home is watching the market response. There's been so much volatility, especially obviously with energy and the U.S. equity market. There was sort of this wait and see happening with the stock market, but oil prices seem to be hovering in this low $90 range here at home. This is obviously the West Texas Intermediate WTI contract that we watch here. But it seems the markets perhaps are believing and anticipating that, an end at least is near.
I think that is definitely the case. There was an immediate uptick in the market today, and markets generally, including the Israeli market. And again, it is the increase of 25 or 30% in gas per gallon is very painful for working Americans. We certainly understand that here. It is, however, about half of what people anticipated. If you read the New York Times, they expected oil to go up to about $180 a barrel. It has not. Mm-hmm. So we hope it goes back down to 60. Right now it's around 90. And, again, it's not good, but it could be much worse.
Mr. Ambassador, one big question that a lot of people have, including myself, and I'm sure you might as well, is who is the U.S. engaging with? There have been some reports that it's Mohammed Ghalibaf, who is the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament. There was a report in the Washington Post that it's Abbas Araghchi, who is the foreign minister. What's your best knowledge of who the United States might be talking to?
Well, our sources say it's neither of them. Neither of those gentlemen. Araghchi has no power. And the Speaker of the Parliament is an old-time revolutionary. He's not a person who's going to give up so easily. We believe here that the people the President is talking to are actually in the military, in the IRGC, and they're the people who are actually calling the shots in Iran now. And if so, they're not clerics, they're not theologians, and maybe they'll be more practical.
Well, Ambassador Warren, you've had obviously what is a very big day, emerging from the bomb shelter to come talk to us just now. We appreciate that. Thank you very much for joining us.
As always, Michael, as always, stay safe.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay.
We appreciate you coming over to the shelter to join us. Well, that's a little piece of news, if that's accurate, that it's neither Ghalibaf nor Araghchi, that it's somebody within the IRGC command structure. They're basically running the country, so why wouldn't you talk to them?
Yeah. So we'll hopefully know more soon with the president dropping that news of a significant, I believe he labeled it a gift that came from who he is negotiating with. John, good to be with you. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm Sandra Smith.
Good to be with you as well, Sandra. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm John Roberts. Be sure to follow our social media accounts for all things America Reports. The Story with Martha picks up the news now. Martha?
Indeed, thank you very much, John and Sandra. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum, and this is The Story. So we were all just watching moments ago, President Trump talking about a lot of big stories with regard to what's happening with funding and also with Iran. He says that he doesn't want to give away what's in the deal, but he said, I will tell you that they have agreed to never having a nuclear weapon or nuclear weapons program or anything that will go along with it. General Jack Keane is here. He's going to give us his thoughts on everything that we just heard from the president as we, sort of watch this unfold over the next several days in the time frame that the president has allotted. And we should point out that the bombing continues, except for they're not targeting energy sites in Iran at this point. So we're going to get you completely up to speed on that. President Trump also saying on the home front that he will take a look at a possible deal to end the Homeland Security shutdown, as former Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin took over moments ago officially and ceremonially in the Oval Office today as the new Secretary of DHS. Montana Senator Steve Daines is one of the Republicans who was at the White House last evening as they try to hammer out how to get the SAVE Act through and DHS open. He will tell us where he thinks all that stands and what is next. That's just moments away. But first, the Senate is debating a bill requiring proof of citizenship to vote, otherwise known as the SAVE Act, the Save America Act. And they have been debating this now into week number 2. And our Capitol Hill guru says that it is, quote, going nowhere. That would be Chief Congressional Correspondent Chad Perger reporting live on this moment by moment from Capitol Hill. Hi, Chad. So, set us up, give us an explanation of where all this stands and what would need to happen to get anything that looks like the Save America Voter ID Act through.
Well, Martha, good afternoon. The bill is stuck. Republicans now hope to include some provisions in a special bill immune from a filibuster. It's called budget reconciliation, but that is challenging. The process is only for money and taxes, not policy like voter ID.
Everybody around here, including you, has indicated that that's very hard to do. Isn't that just kind of a wing and a prayer?
I think the budget reconciliation, as I've said before, you have to have a reason to do it. And we'll see if that's what it takes to get some of these things across the finish line. And we can do it with simple majorities.
The Senate has debated the bill for a week, but no Republican has mounted a lengthy speech like New Jersey Democrat Cory Booker to demonstrate their commitment to passing the bill.
I mean, we're busting our butt to do what the public wants us to do. You say you're busting your behind here to try to get the Safe America Act, then why haven't we seen like a 25-hour speech, Cory Booker style, by somebody to keep the Senate in session around the clock and really start doing this? We went out at 4 o'clock on Sunday afternoon.
I think we ought to do everything we can. I mean,
why don't you do it?
Well, I've been down there.
Some Republicans were skeptical that the Senate ever had the votes to pass the Save America Act. GOP Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina accused his side of stringing people along.
I think anytime you promise something you can't possibly deliver, you're going to have to be held accountable. But it's disingenuous to go out to the people and say, I'm fighting for you, when you haven't even entered the ring.
Now the Senate could pivot away from the Save America Act and instead take up a DHS funding bill. The House Freedom Caucus accused Senate Republicans of, quote, gaslighting and failure theater. Martha?
Thank you very much, Chad Pergram. With that, we bring in Montana Republican Senator Steve Daines, who met with the president last night at the White House. A group of GOP senators were there. Good to have you here, Senator. So tell the American people, you hear Chad Pergram, why aren't we seeing Republican senators filibustering this bill, doing everything in their power to try to push this through? It's clearly something the president wants, and a lot of Republicans are asking about it all the time as well.
I have to remember the last time this process was used goes back to 1964 with the Voting Rights Act. It took 60 days before there finally was a bipartisan agreement. In fact, Mike Mansfield, the Democrat senator from Montana, was part of that negotiation when they finally got 71 votes in the U.S. Senate to get that passed. But what happened yesterday at the White House was extraordinary. I got to give tremendous credit to President Trump and his team. The president saw what was going to happen right now at this moment in history a year ago, when we put an extra $150 billion in the Homeland Security budget as part of the reconciliation package a year ago, anticipating the insanity and the craziness of the far left. We want to defund police, defund DHS, defund ICE, and completely go back to open borders. And so because we have those extra funds, we're able now to craft a deal that will allow us to open DHS back up in totality, fund the TSA agents, and make sure that the flying public now is not having to wait 4, 5, 6 hours in airports. As we take a look at these images of airports around the country, it looks like a Walmart on a Black Friday with these huge lines. This is nonsense. The Democrats have blocked this now 14 times in the last 39 days. Right. It's time to end the nonsense, and that's the agreement we got with President Trump last night.
All right. So, yesterday the president was saying that he wanted you all to hold up passage of finding some way to resolve this DHS bill unless you also had a plan for passage of the SAVE Act. Is that done, that discussion?
No, it's not. So here's what we discussed with the president. It's a two-track approach. Number one, let's stop this nonsense with ICE and TSA and get people back on the job. So that's step one to solve this week's problem. It's a parallel path now to continue to work on the SAVE Act that both Democrats and Republican voters widely support. It's just Chuck Schumer and the crazy left that's opposed to it. So what we'll do is we'll continue to battle on the floor. Mike Lee's been leading that effort on the floor. Again, as I said, it took 60 days the last time this process was tried back in 1964. But additionally, we're going to move forward with another budgeting, it's called reconciliation process, that will add additional financial resources to support both ICE and Tom Homan and Secretary Mark Waymon, a great pick for DHS, and enhance the ability to help on SAVE by putting financial incentives. So I think about it as SAVE Plus. It's going to be not only changing the way the laws work in terms of voter ID, but putting financial incentives to stop some of the nonsense that goes on.
I just want to make sure that I understand you. So you're saying that there will be a reconciliation bill that will tie money and tax issues to the SAVE Act, and will it in fact mean that there's a national legislation that insists that all states insist on voter ID for voting? Is that what you're talking about, or something short of that?
Yeah, you can't pass a pure voter ID law only using reconciliation. You can put incentives, financial incentives to discourage voter fraud. We can do that. But this will be in addition to what Mike Lee is working on the floor. This fight doesn't end. We continue that battle on the floor. Again, it took 60 days, the last time this process was used, to get bipartisan consensus, to get to 60 votes to actually get a law passed.
So you talked about how long it took to do the Voting Rights Act, and you heard Chad Burgum's question there. Is there no GOP senator who's willing to go to the floor and do that filibuster to commit to this SAVE Act?
Well, we've had this battle now for 2 weeks. This is going to continue after we get back, after the Easter break, and this fight continues. The last time they did this, again, it was 60 days. I think this battle will continue. We're going to have the Democrats agreeing with their voters who overwhelmingly support voter ID. To realize in many states that Democrats currently serve from, like New Hampshire, they have voter ID laws and citizen laws. This is just common sense.
All right, it's a sticky wicket, as we say. Thank you very much. Senator Daines, good to see you today. Thank you, sir. So we just watched a very interesting news conference in the Oval Office with President Trump. He took a lot of questions, and in that, he said that the United States has received what he called a gift from Iran as it renegotiates with massive military fleets and the 82nd Airborne heading to the Middle East. General Jack Keane joins me with his reaction to what the president just said in the Oval Office next.
Yeah, well, we're in negotiations, as it turned out, and now you've seen what I said yesterday was exactly correct. We're in negotiations right now. They're doing it along with Marco, JD. We have a number of people doing it, and the other side, I can tell you, would like to make a deal.
Silver is the precious metal of the future. Judge Napolitano here. Since 2020, the silver price has risen more than 350%. Why? In each of the last 4 years, rising demand for solar and electric vehicles alone has put
this. You know, I said yesterday, they said, what are the top 10? I said, well, number 1, 2, and 3 is they can't have a nuclear weapon. And they're not going to have a nuclear weapon, and we're talking about that. And I don't want to say in advance, but they've agreed they will never have a nuclear weapon. They've agreed to that. They're going to make a deal. They're going to make a deal. They did something yesterday that was amazing, actually. They gave us a present, and the present arrived today. It was a very big present worth a tremendous amount of money. And I'm not going to tell you what that present is, but it was a very significant prize, and they gave it to us, and they said they were going to give it, so that meant one thing to me: we deal with the right people. No, it wasn't nuclear related. It was oil and gas related, and it was a very nice thing they did, but what it showed me is that we're dealing with the right people. Because, you know, you don't know, because the leadership was killed, all gone. Khomeini, all gone, as the expression goes, the past supreme leader. And then the new supreme leader was racked up, at a minimum racked up pretty good, and everyone else was gone. And then many of the people in the third tier are gone, but we're dealing with a group of people that I think turn out, and the present, the gift they made to us was very significant, and they said they were going to do it, and it happened, and they're the only ones that could have done it.
So what happened? That's the big question right now. Let's bring in retired 4-star General Jack Keane, Fox News senior strategic analyst, former Army Vice Chief of Staff, and now chairman of the Institute for the Study of War for quite some time. General, it's always good to have you with us. What do you think this gift that the president's referring to is?
No, I have no idea. I mean, maybe transit to the Gulf, some of our shipping, Gulf oil. I have no idea what that is. But, you know, in terms of where are we really? First of all, on the military side, let me just state for our audience, we are well on our way to accomplishing every single objective that the president assigned to the United States military. And the same thing is true of the IDF. Prime Minister Netanyahu assigned objectives to them. There is no doubt in our minds that we can accomplish all of those objectives, to include opening the Straits of Hormuz by force and keeping it open. And it's largely the fact that that operation is continuing, and the president is insisting on it continuing, that gives us leverage in these negotiations. And while we can't get into the details of what those negotiations are, I mean, based on what I do know in a general sense about it, while the regime likely would stay in power, they're surrendering everything that we would take away from them using military operations. And that makes me skeptical, to be frank. One, whether they will actually agree to all of that, and two, they are pathological liars and cheaters. And we are so used to that through all of these years. After all, the president tried to work a deal with them, Martha, before hostilities began, and couldn't deal with them, was fed up with them, and knew full well that they were ideologically bent and committed to returning to the Iran they have always been after the 12-day war. And the intelligence evidence of what they were doing demonstrated that clearly, and that is why hostilities began. If there really truly is a change of heart here, and they are clearly willing to give up everything that they value, while I'm skeptical of it, certainly that would be a monumental deal and concession on their part. It remains to be seen.
It's clear that the regime wants to survive, and that is the most basic element of what they are hoping to hang on to here. I just want to play this soundbite. This is from back in February. This is the Iranian president, Pezeshkian, who is still in power. Here's what he said back in February. Watch this.
We are not seeking nuclear weapons. We have announced this over and over, that we are ready for any verification.
So he has long said, we're not seeking nuclear weapons. I interviewed him several months ago. He said the same thing to me. And I said, well, why do you enrich to 60% then? And he said, because the IAEA allows us to enrich to that level. That's why we do it. So what is different now? Obviously, their military has been decimated. How do you see it?
Well, what's different now, I think whoever it is that we're speaking to, by the way, we're not speaking directly to the Iranians yet. We're talking through mediators or third parties who are relaying messages back and forth. And what our negotiators, led by Steve Wickoff, are attempting to do is have a direct meeting face to face, possibly Pakistan or some other place. And that answer has not arrived yet. But listen to what you just put up there. I mean, this is the pathological lying that's been going on forever. And then they boast to Steve Wickoff that, look at it, we have enough nuclear enrichment and capability to build 11 nuclear weapons, boasting to him. He's not mentioning nuclear power plants, which they have one of. Yeah, so these guys have been liars now for almost 5 decades. The president goes into this, believe me, with his eyes wide open. He knows who he's dealing with here. And he certainly knows full well where our military is and what remains for them to do to accomplish their missions. They do need more time, and nobody's trying to hide that fact. Yeah. But a key decision was keep moving towards those objectives. We'll use that in leverage against the Iranians, certainly. And listen, you put your finger on what's truly happening to some of these leaders. They do not just want the regime to survive. They're trying to survive personally. And that has created a chaotic decision-making process which has been difficult for us to access. And the Israelis underscore that because they have penetrated it. And they have an understanding of how chaotic that is. Lower morale among the troops down there who actually do the enforcing of their policies. And that's to be understood. Given what's happening, we've killed hundreds and hundreds of them as well, in addition to their leaders. Not to speak of all the military capabilities we've taken away from them.
We gotta leave it there, General. As always, we are grateful for your time, and it's wonderful to have you with us. One of the things the president said the other day was, maybe we share the strait. Maybe I'm in charge of it. We're waiting to find out what the gift is. The president did not want to share it at this level of the negotiations, but we'll see exactly what it looks like when we learn more. General Jack Keane, always good to see you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, great talking to you, Martha, as always.
So our breaking coverage continues. Later this hour, we will speak with retired Vice Admiral Mark Montgomery, who has commanded a carrier strike group. As 2 of them head to the region, they are expected to arrive there on Friday, the same day that this negotiation, we understand, is supposed to wrap up.
Just from my point of view, stick with President Donald Trump and the team that he's put together. And I think this will work out. And to the Democrats, remember you're Americans. Remember you're Americans. Act like it. Get off this business of trying to control the House and the Senate. Pass the legislation and become American citizens legitimately. Shutting down the government and the workers and not paying them is a cowardly way to do things. A cowardly way to do things. And an anti-American way to do things. Get over your personalities and get back in what's right for America with godly principles. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the films we did so you can see what's going on in all points of view, including my little point of view. If you got questions, call me, 859-750-0000. Email, small j, small s, 750-0000 at gmail.com. God bless you and have a great day. And don't forget to listen to WIOK 107.5 FM on the radio dial, Tri-State Gospel, Post Office Box 50, Falmouth, Kentucky, 41040 zip code. Gil and Jan Hammond for 35 years. Great gospel music and preaching and great news. WIOK 107.5 FM. God bless you and have a great day.